My husband's family tried to convince everyone I was crazy, so I recorded them plotting against me. It started 3 months after I married Garrett. His mother would make these little comments during Sunday dinners, how I seemed overwhelmed by simple conversations, how I misremembered things that happened the week before. At first, I thought she was just being protective of her son. Then his sister started chiming in. Poor Garrett, she'd sigh dramatically. You're so patient with her episodes. Episodes? I'd been a high school teacher for 6 years. I had a master's degree. I'd never had a mental health issue in my life, but they were persistent. His father would shake his head sadly whenever I'd correct something they'd said. There she goes again, he'd murmur to Garrett. Maybe you should look into getting her some help. The worst part was watching Garrett slowly start to believe them. Honey, he said one evening after a particularly brutal family dinner, Mom thinks you might benefit from talking to someone professional. About what? I asked, genuinely confused. You've been different lately. Paranoid. Argumentative. Even I've noticed. I stared at him. Argumentative? I corrected your sister when she said I'd burned the dinner last week. She literally served us takeout because she forgot to turn on the oven. See? He said gently. You're doing it again. That's when I realized what was happening. For the next month, I started paying closer attention. His mother would tell stories about conversations we'd supposedly had that never happened. His sister would move things in their house, then act concerned when I couldn't find them where I'd left them. His father would mention concerning behaviors he'd witnessed that were complete fabrications. They were gaslighting me systematically. The breaking point came when his mother suggested Garrett look into having me committed for a psychiatric evaluation. She'd printed out articles about early-onset dementia and paranoid personality disorders, highlighted sections about how family members needed to act quickly for everyone's safety. I was 29 years old. That night, I drove to an electronics store and bought the smallest recording device I could find. If they wanted to convince everyone I was losing my mind, I was going to make sure I had proof of what was really happening. For 2 weeks, I recorded every family interaction, Sunday dinners, casual visits, phone calls I wasn't supposed to hear. I kept detailed notes with timestamps. I documented every lie, every manipulation, every coordinated attack on my sanity. The device was so small I could hide it anywhere. In my purse, clipped inside my jacket, even taped under tables during family gatherings. They had no idea their every word was being captured. The first recording that made my blood run cold was his sister talking to their mother on the phone. I'd arrived early for dinner and was waiting in the living room when I heard her voice from the kitchen. She's getting suspicious, his sister said. Yesterday she asked me directly if I'd moved her keys. What did you tell her? His mother asked. I acted concerned and suggested she make a doctor's appointment, told her memory issues run in families sometimes. They laughed about it. Last Sunday, I arrived at their house early and hid in the pantry while they set up for dinner. That's when I finally heard what I'd been suspecting all along. His mother's voice was crystal clear through the thin pantry door. The psychiatric evaluation is scheduled for Thursday, she said. Dr. Williamson owes me a favor from the country club. He's already reviewed the documentation we've compiled. What documentation? His father asked. Everything we've discussed. The memory issues, the paranoid behavior, the aggressive outbursts. Garrett's been taking notes like we asked. My blood ran cold. Garrett had been documenting fake symptoms? Once she's committed, his sister chimed in, we can start the process. Dad's lawyer says that with a mental health hold and Garrett as her medical proxy, transferring her inheritance should be straightforward. My inheritance. My grandmother had left me $340,000 when she died last year, money I'd planned to use for our future children's education. The house will need to be sold too, his mother continued. Mental health facilities are expensive, and Garrett shouldn't be burdened with mortgage payments for someone who can't appreciate what she has. The house my grandmother had also left me, the house Garrett and I were living in. You're sure this will work? His father asked. Dr. Williamson specializes in cases like this. He says women often develop psychological breaks after marriage stress. With our testimony and Garrett's documentation, it's an open and shut case. What if she fights it? His sister laughed. With what credibility? We've spent months establishing that she's delusional. Who's going to believe her over a respected doctor and 3 upstanding community members? I heard footsteps moving toward the kitchen and slipped deeper into the pantry. The recording device in my pocket captured every word. The beautiful part, his mother said, is that she's actually starting to doubt herself. Garrett says she asked him yesterday if he thought she was losing her mind. They all laughed. Remember how she cried last week when she couldn't find her car keys? His sister added. I'd moved them to the junk drawer while she was in the bathroom. She looked so pathetic, questioning her own memory. The medication switch was genius too, his father said. Switching her birth control pills with those anxiety medications made her genuinely dizzy and confused for weeks. She still doesn't know why she felt so awful last month. My hands started shaking. They'd been drugging me. Dr. Williamson says the medical records from when she was feeling sick will support the deteriorating mental health narrative, his mother continued, especially since she went to 3 different doctors trying to figure out what was wrong. I remembered those doctors' visits. The blood tests, the MRIs, the confusion when everything came back normal. I'd felt like I was losing my mind because they were literally making me lose my mind. Once she's in the facility, his sister said, how long before we can access the money? Dr. Williamson estimates 6 months, his father replied. Long enough to establish a pattern of severe mental illness, short enough that the inheritance doesn't get tied up in lengthy court proceedings. And if she dies in there? His sister asked casually. The silence that followed was deafening. These things happen, his mother finally said. Mental health facilities can be dangerous places. Patients often harm themselves or get into altercations with other residents, especially patients who refuse to take their medication, his father added, or patients who keep insisting they're not actually mentally ill. his sister finished. They were planning my murder. The best part, his mother continued, is that Garrett will inherit everything as her husband. Then we can finally expand the business without worrying about investors. What about her family? His father asked. Won't they ask questions? What family? His sister laughed. Her parents died in that car accident 5 years ago. She has no siblings. The only relative who mattered was the grandmother, and she's already dead. That's why we picked her, his mother said matter-of-factly. Garrett spent months researching recent inheritances in the newspaper obituaries. She was perfect. Young, isolated, grieving, and rich. My stomach dropped. They'd targeted me specifically. How many others have we done this to? His sister asked. Patricia was the first, his father replied. That was our trial run. We learned a lot from her mistakes. Patricia. I'd never heard that name before. She fought too hard, his mother said. Kept insisting she wasn't crazy, even after we got her committed. Made it difficult to maintain the narrative. At least she died quickly, his sister added. The insulin overdose looked natural enough. This time will be cleaner, his father said. We've perfected the process. The medication combinations, the documentation, the timeline. Dr. Williamson has it down to a science now. How many others know about this? His mother asked. Just Dr. Williamson and his nurse, his father replied. They get 30% of each inheritance. It's a profitable arrangement for everyone. Except the victims, his sister said. And they all laughed again. I stayed hidden until Garrett arrived and dinner began. For 2 hours, I sat at their table, smiled, and made small talk while they performed their concerned family act. Every worried glance, every gentle suggestion about my mental state, every manipulation was now captured on my recording device. How are you feeling lately, sweetheart? His mother asked with fake concern. You seem tired. A little, I admitted. Work's been stressful. Maybe you should consider taking some time off, his father suggested. Mental health is so important. Mental health days can be really beneficial, his sister added. Sometimes a nice long break is exactly what someone needs. The code words were obvious now. Time off meant the psychiatric facility. Long break meant indefinite commitment. Mental health days meant the beginning of the end. During dessert, Garrett put his arm around me. You know we all love you, right? He said. We just want what's best for you. I nodded and smiled while internally screaming. Sometimes the people who love us most can see things we can't see ourselves, his mother added. That's why family is so important. We're here for you, his sister said, squeezing my hand. Whatever you need. What I needed was to get as far away from these psychopaths as possible. After dinner, his mother pulled me aside in the kitchen. I've been thinking about what we discussed last week, she said quietly. About you seeing someone professional. I hadn't discussed anything with her last week. I've made some calls, she continued. There's a wonderful doctor who specializes in women's mental health. Dr. Williamson. He's helped so many young wives adjust to married life. I'm not having trouble adjusting, I said carefully. She tilted her head with fake sympathy. Honey, denial is often the first sign of a deeper problem. Garrett's told me about your episodes. The confusion, the memory issues, the paranoid thoughts. I haven't had any episodes. See? She said gently. You don't even remember them. That's exactly what Dr. Williamson warned me about. That night, I told Garrett I wasn't feeling well and went to bed early. Instead, I transferred all the recordings to my laptop and made multiple backup copies. I researched Dr. Williamson and discovered he'd been censured twice for falsifying psychiatric evaluations in financial disputes. I also discovered something else. 3 years ago, a woman named Patricia Henley had died in Riverside Psychiatric Facility after being committed by her family for paranoid delusions and financial incompetence. The family had claimed she was suffering from early-onset dementia after inheriting her parents' estate. Patricia Henley was listed as Garrett's aunt in the obituary. I dug deeper into the records. Patricia had inherited $280,000 from her parents. After her death, the money had gone to her closest living relatives, Garrett's father and his sibling, the same psychiatric facility where they planned to send me, the same Dr. Williamson who had signed her commitment papers. They'd done this before and they'd gotten away with murder. I called in sick to work Monday morning and drove to the best family attorney in the city. Margaret Chen had a reputation for taking on impossible cases and winning them. This is criminal conspiracy, she said after listening to the recordings. Fraud, attempted theft, conspiracy to commit medical fraud, conspiracy to commit murder. These people are looking at serious jail time. I told her about Patricia Henley. We're going to need to exhume her body, she said grimly. If they killed her, there might still be evidence. What about the psychiatric evaluation scheduled for Thursday? Oh, you're going to that appointment, but Dr. Williamson won't be conducting it. Tuesday morning, my attorney filed emergency protective orders against all 3 family members and submitted the recordings to the district attorney's office. She also contacted the medical board about Dr. Williamson's planned misconduct and the FBI about the potential pattern of murders. By Tuesday afternoon, the story had exploded. The district attorney held a press conference announcing the arrest of Dr. Williamson and the investigation into what they were calling the inheritance murder scheme. Wednesday morning, I received a panicked call from Garrett. What did you do? He screamed. The police just arrested Dr. Williamson. My parents' house is surrounded by news vans. I recorded your family planning to drug me, commit me, steal my inheritance, and kill me, I said calmly. So I turned the recordings over to the authorities. You're insane, he said. None of that is true. The FBI seems to think it's true enough to exhume your Aunt Patricia's body. The line went dead. Within an hour, my phone was ringing again. This time it was his mother. You don't understand what you've done, she hissed. You've destroyed our family over your paranoid delusions. I've exposed your family for the murderers you are. No one will believe you. Everyone knows you're mentally unstable. Everyone will believe the recordings where you planned my death. Those recordings are inadmissible. You made them illegally. Actually, I checked with my attorney. Recording conversations about planned crimes against you is perfectly legal. She hung up. Wednesday evening, Garrett came home to find me packing. Where are you going? He asked, looking genuinely confused. Somewhere safe from my husband, who's been documenting fake mental health symptoms to have me committed. His face went white. I played him 30 seconds of the recording, just his mother discussing his documentation and the planned inheritance theft. I can explain, he stammered. You've been gaslighting me for months. You've been working with your family to steal my inheritance and have me locked up in a psychiatric facility. You drugged me. You planned to kill me. What exactly would you like to explain? He sank into a chair. They said you'd be happier somewhere you could get help, that the money would just be a burden for someone in your condition. What condition, Garrett? I'm a functioning adult with a career and no mental health issues. Your family manufactured an illness so they could steal from me and murder me. We weren't going to kill you, he protested weakly. I played another section of the recording, his sister asking about me dying in the facility, and his mother's response about things happen. They discussed murdering me like they were planning a dinner menu, and you were in on it. I just did what they told me to do, he said, tears streaming down his face. They said it was for your own good. Documenting fake symptoms was for my own good. Drugging me was for my own good. Planning my death was for my own good. I didn't know about the drugs, he said. I swear I didn't know they were switching your medication. I played the recording of his father praising the medication switch as genius. You were there when he said that. You laughed. I thought they meant something else. What else could switching my birth control with anxiety medication possibly mean? He had no answer. The next morning, I moved into a hotel and waited. Thursday afternoon, Dr. Williamson's office was raided by FBI agents. When Garrett and his family showed up for my evaluation, they walked into a sting operation. FBI agents were waiting to arrest them. The recordings were damning, but the physical evidence was even worse. A search of their homes revealed bottles of psychiatric medications that matched what had been in my system during those weeks I'd felt sick. They'd kept detailed notes about my reactions to the drugs, documenting which ones made me most confused and disoriented. They found Patricia Henley's medical records in his father's safe, along with records for 2 other relatives who had died under suspicious circumstances after inheriting money. This wasn't just about me. This was a family business spanning decades. In Garrett's laptop, they found a folder labeled Project Recovery, containing detailed plans for my psychological destruction. It included timelines for increasing my confusion, scripts for gaslighting conversations, and research into inheritance law. But the most chilling discovery was a spreadsheet tracking potential future victims. Names, inheritance amounts, family situations, psychological profiles. They'd been planning this operation for years, targeting vulnerable people who'd recently lost family members and inherited substantial amounts. The FBI had been investigating Dr. Williamson for Medicare fraud when my attorney's report landed on their desk. The recordings gave them everything they needed to expand the investigation into what they now called the largest inheritance murder conspiracy in state history. During the investigation, they discovered Patricia's death hadn't been a medication error. The autopsy they performed after exhuming her body showed she'd been poisoned with a combination of psychiatric drugs that would have been undetectable at the time of her death. The same combination they'd been testing on me. But the most damning evidence came from Dr. Williamson's files. He'd kept detailed records of every victim, their symptoms, their responses to medications, their family dynamics. He'd been running what amounted to a murder-for-hire service disguised as psychiatric care. The files revealed that over the past 10 years, he'd helped families commit at least 12 relatives who had inherited money. 8 of them had died in psychiatric facilities under suspicious circumstances. Watching myself on those videos was horrifying. I looked genuinely confused and disoriented, slurring my words and stumbling around our kitchen. I remembered those days as my sick period, when I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. Seeing myself drugged and documented like a lab rat made me physically ill. The media picked up the story. Local families' elaborate murder scheme exposed ran on the front page for weeks. Garrett's father was a prominent business owner. His mother was active in charity organizations. The scandal destroyed their reputation completely. But the worst revelation came during the trial. The prosecutor revealed that they'd been planning this since before Garrett and I even met. They'd researched my inheritance and developed the psychological manipulation strategy after my grandmother's death was announced in the newspaper. Garrett had approached me deliberately. Our chance meeting at the coffee shop had been orchestrated. Our entire relationship had been a setup. The defendant spent 6 months studying the victim's routine, the prosecutor explained. He learned her favorite coffee shop, her schedule, even her favorite books. He created a fake persona designed to appeal specifically to her. They showed evidence that he'd researched my social media for months, crafting his personality to match what I was looking for in a partner. He'd even taken classes in subjects I was interested in so we'd have things to talk about. Our first date, our first kiss, our engagement, all of it had been a performance designed to get access to my inheritance. The defendant's search history shows extensive research into inheritance law, psychiatric commitment procedures, and untraceable poisons, the prosecutor continued. He viewed videos on how to fake romantic interest and downloaded books on manipulation tactics. During cross-examination, Garrett's defense attorney tried to paint him as a victim of his family's manipulation. My client was raised by these people, the lawyer argued. He was groomed from childhood to participate in these schemes. The prosecutor wasn't having it. The defendant is 32 years old. He's an adult who made conscious choices to drug his wife, document fake symptoms, and participate in planning her murder. Childhood trauma doesn't excuse attempted murder. The trial lasted 8 weeks. I testified for 5 days, walking the jury through the entire experience. I played the recordings of his family planning my death. I showed them the videos Garrett had secretly taken of me while I was drugged. The defense tried to argue that the recordings were inadmissible because I'd made them without consent. The defendant and his co-conspirators were plotting the victim's murder, the judge ruled. She had every right to record evidence of crimes being planned against her. During the trial, more victims came forward. Patricia's daughter testified about her mother's final phone call, describing how Patricia had begged her to believe that the family was poisoning her. Another family contacted the prosecutor about a relative who had died in the same facility after being committed for financial paranoia. The most heartbreaking testimony came from Dr. Williamson's former nurse, who had quit after witnessing patients being given unauthorized medications. She'd tried to report it but was told the families had requested the treatments. I knew something was wrong, she testified. These patients would come in lucid and alert, and within weeks they were zombies. But their families always insisted they needed stronger medication. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. Garrett got 30 years for conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and assault. His parents each got life sentences without parole. His sister got 35 years. Dr. Williamson got life plus 30 years. During sentencing, the judge made a statement that still gives me chills. This court has never seen such a calculated, long-term scheme to destroy another human being, he said. The defendant spent years planning not just the victim's financial ruin, but her psychological destruction and eventual murder. The level of premeditation and cruelty involved in this case is beyond comprehension. The victim trusted these people. She invited them into her life, into her home, into her heart. They repaid that trust by systematically destroying her sense of reality and planning her death. There are no words adequate to describe the evil demonstrated by these defendants. Our marriage was annulled. I kept the house, the inheritance, and the recordings as evidence of what people are capable of when they think they can get away with it. 6 months later, I received a letter from Patricia Henley's daughter. She'd been estranged from the family for years and only learned about the trial through news coverage. My mother tried to tell everyone the family was plotting against her, she wrote. She called me the week before she died, saying they were poisoning her and planning to kill her. I thought she was having a breakdown. I told her to take her medication and stop being paranoid. I hung up on her. That was the last time we spoke. You proved my mother was right all along. She wasn't crazy. They were criminals. I've lived with the guilt of not believing her for 3 years. Thank you for giving me the truth, even though it came too late to save her. I framed that letter and hung it in my living room, my grandmother's living room, in my grandmother's house that I almost lost to people who saw my grief as an opportunity. The aftermath was complicated. The FBI investigation revealed that Garrett's family had been running inheritance schemes for over 20 years. They'd targeted at least 15 other people, successfully stealing from 11 and murdering 8. The victims' families filed wrongful death lawsuits. The psychiatric facility where Patricia died was shut down. Dr. Williamson's medical license was permanently revoked, and several other doctors who had worked with him were investigated. But the psychological damage was harder to address. For months after the trial, I questioned everything. Had my feelings for Garrett been real? How had I been so blind to what was happening? How many other people in my life weren't who they seemed to be? I started seeing a therapist, a real one, who I'd researched extensively and who specialized in victims of long-term psychological manipulation. It took over a year before I could trust my own perceptions again. Gaslighting is incredibly effective because it's designed to make you doubt your sanity, Dr. Morrison explained. Your reactions were completely normal. Anyone subjected to that level of systematic manipulation would have responded the same way. She helped me understand that my grandmother's inheritance hadn't just been money, it had been a target. That kind of sudden wealth often attracts predators, people who see opportunity in others' grief and vulnerability. The fact that you recorded them shows that some part of you knew what was happening, she said. Trust that instinct. It saved your life. 2 years after the trial, I decided to write a book about the experience. Gaslit: How I Recorded My Husband's Family Planning My Murder became a bestseller and helped other victims of similar schemes come forward. The book tour was surreal. Everywhere I went, people had stories of family members who'd tried to have them committed, spouses who'd documented fake symptoms, relatives who'd disappeared after inheriting money. One woman in Denver told me her brother had tried to have her committed after their father left her the family business. Another woman in Seattle described how her husband's family had been slowly poisoning her food until she developed neurological symptoms that mimicked early dementia. The FBI estimated that inheritance-related elder abuse and psychiatric fraud affected thousands of people annually, but most cases were never reported because the victims were successfully convinced they were mentally ill. My story sparked legislative changes. Several states passed laws requiring independent psychiatric evaluations for inheritance-related commitments. Others mandated body cameras for psychiatric facility staff and stricter oversight of doctors who specialized in commitment proceedings. 3 years after the trial, I received an unexpected visitor. A young woman named Rebecca knocked on my door one evening, clutching a newspaper clipping about my case. "I think my boyfriend's family is trying to do this to me," she said, tears streaming down her face. Rebecca's story was chillingly familiar. Her boyfriend had started documenting her episodes after she inherited her grandfather's farm. His family had been making comments about her mental state and suggesting she needed professional help. I helped her install recording equipment and connected her with my attorney. Sure enough, we caught his family planning an identical scheme. Rebecca's recordings led to another FBI investigation and 8 more arrests. That's when I realized this wasn't over. I started a nonprofit organization called Inheritance Justice to help victims of inheritance-related abuse. We provided legal resources, recording equipment, and connections to trustworthy attorneys. Within a year, we'd helped expose 16 more inheritance fraud schemes across 8 states. The organization grew rapidly. Victims contacted us from across the country, reporting similar patterns of gaslighting, fake documentation, and planned psychiatric commitments. We worked with law enforcement to identify and prosecute these schemes before they escalated to murder. Our first major case after Rebecca involved a 70-year-old widow whose stepchildren had been gradually increasing her medication doses to make her appear confused and incompetent. They'd planned to have her declared mentally unfit so they could take control of her $2 million estate. The recording equipment we provided captured them discussing which medications would be most effective at creating dementia-like symptoms without being easily detected. The stepchildren were arrested and sentenced to 15 years each. The success stories kept coming. A young man whose aunt was trying to steal his inheritance from his deceased parents. A woman whose in-laws were planning to have her committed after she inherited her husband's life insurance. An elderly man whose nephew was slowly poisoning him to access his retirement savings. Each case followed the same pattern: target someone vulnerable, isolate them from support systems, gradually destroy their credibility, then move in for the kill. But for every person we helped, I knew there were dozens more who never realized what was happening to them. People who died in psychiatric facilities, convinced they really were losing their minds. People who lost everything to family members they trusted. Last month marked the 5th anniversary of Garrett's arrest. I received a letter from him in prison, the first contact we'd had since the trial. "I know you'll never forgive me," he wrote, "but I want you to know that I did love you. The feelings weren't all fake. Sometimes I'd forget why I was there and just enjoy being with you. I've had 5 years to think about what I did. I destroyed the only real relationship I ever had for money I never even got to spend. I lost everything, my freedom, my family, my future, for a scheme that was doomed from the start. I dream about you every night. In my dreams, we're still married and happy, and none of this happened. I wake up and remember that I destroyed the only good thing in my life. My family ruined my life just like they ruined yours. The difference is that you were strong enough to fight back. I was too weak to stand up to them. I hope someday you can find happiness again. You deserve better than what I gave you." I threw the letter away without finishing it. Some apologies come too late, and some betrayals can never be forgiven. Last week, I got married again. To David, a widower I met through my nonprofit work. His wife had been murdered by her stepchildren in an inheritance scheme similar to mine. We bonded over shared trauma and built something real from the wreckage of our previous lives. The guest list was small: my real friends, his real family, and the FBI agent who'd worked my case and become a close friend. Everyone who attended had been thoroughly vetted. Everyone who attended was exactly who they claimed to be. During our vows, David promised to always believe me, always trust my instincts, and never let anyone make me doubt my own reality. I promised him the same. We're honeymooning at my grandmother's lake house, the one Garrett's family never knew about, the one they never tried to steal. It's peaceful here, surrounded by memories of someone who actually loved me. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I hadn't bought that recording device. I'd be dead now. Another tragic story of a young woman who'd succumbed to mental illness in a psychiatric facility. Garrett would be living in my house, spending my inheritance, already planning his next victim. Instead, he's in prison where he belongs, and I'm married to someone who sees my past trauma as evidence of my strength rather than a weakness to exploit. The recording device sits in my jewelry box now, next to my new wedding ring, a reminder that sometimes the most important thing you can do is document the truth, even when everyone around you is telling you it's a lie. Especially when everyone around you is telling you it's a lie. My mother-in-law said, "Our family vacations aren't optional," until we sent postcards from Japan during their Florida trip. For 3 years, Daphne had dictated where we'd vacation. Always the same beach house in Destin, always the second week of July. Always with her entire extended family crammed into a rental that smelled like mildew and broken dreams. My husband Brennan would just shrug when I'd suggest we skip a year. "It's easier to just go," he'd say. Easier for him, maybe. I spent those vacations cooking for 17 people while his mother critiqued my lasagna, and his sister Ren complained about the portions. Meanwhile, Brennan played golf with his dad and uncles. Last year was the final straw. Daphne handed me an actual schedule on day 1. 6 a.m., breakfast for everyone. Noon, lunch. 6:30 p.m., dinner. "We eat as a family," she announced. "And since you don't work, you have plenty of time." I had taken exactly 2 vacation days from my corporate law job. Brennan said nothing. That night, I told Brennan I was done. "Next year, we're doing our own trip." He laughed. "Mom will lose it." "Good," I said. In January, I booked us 2 weeks in Japan. First-class tickets, traditional ryokans, the whole thing. Cost $11,000 from my separate savings account that Brennan didn't know existed. When Daphne sent the group text in March about July's trip, I replied simply, "We won't be able to make it this year." My phone exploded. Daphne called 6 times. Ren sent paragraphs about family loyalty. Brennan's dad texted that I was being selfish. Brennan stood in our kitchen looking panicked. "Can't we just go for a few days?" He begged. "No," I said. "I already have plans." "What plans?" I showed him the confirmation emails. His face went pale. "You booked this without asking me?" "You've been going to Florida without asking me for years," I replied. He tried everything. Guilt about abandoning family, concern about the cost, even suggested we could do Japan another time. I didn't budge. The second week of July arrived. We landed in Tokyo while his family drove to Florida. I'd never seen Brennan so nervous. That first day, we visited temples, ate incredible sushi, soaked in an onsen. I watched him slowly relax, like he'd been holding his breath for years. On day 3, we bought postcards. Beautiful ones with Mount Fuji and cherry blossom. I wrote, "Weather is beautiful, food is amazing. Wish you were here." Signed it and mailed it to the beach house. Brennan looked at me like I'd committed murder, but then he started laughing, really laughing. "They're going to kill us," he said. "Probably," I agreed. We spent 2 weeks eating, exploring, and actually talking to each other. When we got home, there were 47 missed calls. Daphne had left a voicemail so venomous I saved it. Ren had posted vague booking about ungrateful people on Facebook. But here's what broke me. During the family trip, Daphne had apparently spent the entire time complaining about us. She'd shown everyone the postcard and cried about her son abandoning her. She'd called me manipulative, controlling, and a dozen other things. And Brennan's entire family had agreed with her, including his dad and both siblings. Nobody had defended us once. When we didn't respond to the calls, Daphne escalated. She started showing up at our house unannounced. She'd let herself in with the key Brennan had given her years ago and rearrange our kitchen. One morning, I came downstairs to find her scrubbing our bathroom, muttering about how I clearly couldn't keep a proper home. I changed the locks that afternoon. That's when things got interesting. Daphne called Brennan sobbing, claiming I'd locked her out of her son's life. What I found in our bedroom 3 days later made me realize she'd been doing much more than cleaning. I'd come home early from work with a migraine. Our bedroom door was slightly ajar, which was odd because I always closed it. When I pushed it open, I found a small camera tucked behind our alarm clock, not hidden particularly well, almost like she wanted me to find it. My hands shook as I pulled it out. It was still recording. The memory card showed 11 days of footage, 11 days of our private bedroom. I sat on the edge of the bed feeling sick. How long had this been here? I checked every room, found 2 more cameras, one in the guest bathroom, hidden inside a decorative soap dispenser, another in the living room, tucked into a houseplant she'd brought us as a gift 3 months ago. 3 months of footage. I didn't watch any of it. I called a security company immediately. The technician found 2 additional cameras I'd missed. One in the kitchen vent, one in the home office disguised as a USB charger. 5 cameras total. The technician whistled low. This is professional-grade surveillance equipment. Not cheap. Whoever installed these knew what they were doing. I knew exactly who had installed them. I saved all the memory cards and documented everything with photos. Then I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. Teresa Chen, the most vicious family law attorney in the state. She'd made partners cry during depositions. When I explained the situation, she was silent for a long moment. Tell me you haven't confronted her yet. I haven't told anyone except you. Good, don't. We're going to need police involved, but let's be strategic about this. That night, Brennan came home to find me sitting in the dark living room. Why are all the lights off? He asked. I turned on the lamp and showed him the cameras arranged on the coffee table. His face went from confused to horrified in about 3 seconds. Where did these come from? Your mother installed them. In our bedroom. Our bathrooms. Everywhere. He picked one up with trembling hands. This has to be a mistake. Mom wouldn't. The technician pulled 14 weeks of footage off these devices. Your mother has been watching us for months. He sat down hard. Started crying. Not pretty crying either. The kind of crying that comes from your entire worldview shattering. I don't understand. Why would she do this? Because she's been obsessed with controlling you your entire life, and I'm the obstacle. I showed him the invoice from the surveillance equipment. It had been purchased on his mother's credit card. Her name was right there on the receipt. No denying it. Brennan wanted to call her immediately. I stopped him. We're doing this the right way. Through lawyers and police. She's my mother. We can't send her to jail. She committed multiple felonies. She violated our privacy in the most invasive way possible. She watched us in our own bedroom. The reality hit him then. Everything that meant. His face went pale. Oh God. She saw everything, I confirmed. Every private moment, every conversation, everything. He threw up in the kitchen sink. I waited until he was done, then handed him water. The lawyer wants to meet tomorrow. We file a police report, get a restraining order, and press charges. Can't we just talk to her? Make her understand this was wrong? Brennan, she installed 5 hidden cameras in our house. She spent thousands of dollars to spy on us. She knew exactly what she was doing, but he couldn't accept it. Spent the whole night pacing, calling his mother repeatedly. She didn't answer. Around 2 a.m., his phone finally rang. I could hear her voice from across the room, shrill and panicked. Brennan, honey, I don't know what she told you, but he put her on speaker. Mom, did you put cameras in our house? I was worried about you. She's changed you so much. I just wanted to make sure you were okay. You spied on us for 3 months. In our bedroom. Silence. Then, a mother has a right to know what's happening with her son? No, he said quietly. No, you really don't. He hung up. It was the first time I'd ever seen him stand up to her. The next morning, we met with Teresa Chen. She reviewed everything with the efficiency of a surgeon. This is clear-cut. Illegal surveillance, invasion of privacy, possibly stalking depending on her other behaviors. We'll get a restraining order easily. Criminal charges are up to you. Will she go to jail? Brennan asked. Probably not for a first offense, but she'll have a criminal record, pay significant fines, and she'll be legally required to stay away from both of you. We filed everything that afternoon. Police report, restraining order petition, criminal complaint. The detective who took our statement looked impressed in a disturbing way. In 15 years, I've seen a lot of surveillance cases. This is thorough, almost obsessive. That's his mother, I said. The detective's expression shifted to something like pity. The restraining order hearing was set for 5 days later. In that time, Brennan's phone never stopped ringing. His father called him a traitor. Ren sent a 4,000-word text about how I'd poisoned Brennan's mind against his family. Cousins, aunts, uncles, everyone had an opinion. All of them defended Daphne. She was just concerned. You're overreacting. Family doesn't do this to family. Not one person asked what Daphne had actually done. Brennan stopped answering after the first day. Just let the calls go to voicemail. But I could see each message breaking him a little more. On day 3, his father showed up at his office. Made a scene in the lobby yelling about ungrateful sons and manipulative wives. Security had to escort him out. Brennan's boss called him in after. Take the rest of the week off. Get this sorted. He came home early, looking destroyed. My dad tried to get me fired. He called my boss and said I was having a mental breakdown. Did your boss believe him? No, but he suggested I take some time, let things calm down. Things weren't calming down, they were escalating. That night, Ren showed up at our house, started pounding on the door at 11 p.m. I know you're in there. Open this door. I called the police, told them someone was trying to break into our house. Ren was still screaming when the officers arrived. That's my brother's house. I have a right to see him. The officers were not sympathetic. Ma'am, you need to leave the property. Not until I talk to Brennan. His wife has brainwashed him. She's destroying our family. One officer looked at me. Do you know this woman? My sister-in-law. We've asked her to leave multiple times. That's when Ren lost it completely. Started screaming about how I'd stolen Brennan, isolated him from his family, turned him against his mother. The officers gave her a choice. Leave voluntarily or get arrested for trespassing and disturbing the peace. She left, but not before shouting, "This isn't over. You're going to regret this." The restraining order hearing was worse than I expected. Daphne showed up with her own lawyer. Expensive suit, slicked back hair, the kind of attorney who charged $800 an hour. She'd also brought character witnesses. The priest from their church, her sister, 3 of Brennan's cousins, all prepared to testify that Daphne was a devoted mother who would never do anything wrong. Teresa Chen just smiled. Your Honor, the evidence speaks for itself. She presented the cameras, the receipts with Daphne's name, the footage dates, and the police report. The judge examined everything with increasing disgust. Daphne's lawyer tried to argue she was worried about her son's well-being. My client was concerned about her son's marriage. She wanted to ensure he was safe. The judge cut him off. Counselor, your client installed hidden cameras in her adult son's bedroom. There is no legal justification for that. None. He granted the restraining order immediately. Daphne had to stay at least 500 feet away from us at all times. No contact whatsoever. No phone calls, no texts, no showing up at our house or workplaces. Violation would result in immediate arrest. As we left the courthouse, Daphne's lawyer caught up with us. My client wants you to know she forgives you for this misunderstanding. When you're ready to reconcile, she'll be waiting. Teresa Chen turned to him slowly. Your client committed multiple felonies. This isn't a misunderstanding, it's criminal behavior. If you contact my clients again, I'll add harassment to the charges. But the family harassment continued. Brennan's father started a smear campaign, posted on Facebook about how I'd turned his son against his family, how Brennan was being abused and controlled. Distant relatives who'd never spoken to us suddenly had opinions about our marriage. One of Brennan's uncles sent a letter to my workplace, claiming I was mentally unstable and dangerous. My boss called me in, clearly uncomfortable. I received something concerning. I want you to know I don't believe it, but I have to ask. Is everything okay? I explained the situation briefly, showed him the restraining order. He was horrified. Take whatever time you need, and if anyone from your husband's family contacts this office again, let me know immediately. We'll handle it. The stress was destroying Brennan. He lost 15 pounds in 2 weeks, started having panic attacks. His family had been his entire support system, and now they'd all turned on him because he'd chosen me over his mother's illegal surveillance. The criminal trial was set for 3 months later. In the meantime, things got creative. Someone slashed our tires 4 times in 2 weeks. Someone threw a brick through our living room window with a note attached. Family is everything. You're going to pay for this. Someone filed a false CPS report, claiming we were abusing children we didn't have. The investigator apologized profusely when she realized what was happening. I started documenting everything. Every incident, every message, every attempt at contact. Teresa Chen filed for an extended restraining order to include the entire family. The judge was less sympathetic this time. I can't issue restraining orders against people who haven't broken any laws. You need to prove they're behind these incidents. So I hired a private investigator. Cost me $3,000, but worth every penny. Within a week, he had photo evidence of Ren slashing our tires, video of Brennan's father throwing the brick, recording of his mother coordinating everything over the phone with her daughter. They'd been sloppy, too confident they wouldn't get caught. We went back to court with new evidence. This time, the judge issued restraining orders against Ren and Brennan's father. Both were charged with vandalism and harassment. Daphne's charges were upgraded to include conspiracy. Her expensive lawyer suddenly stopped looking so confident. The family finally went quiet after that. No more late-night visits, no more threatening notes. But the damage was done. Brennan's entire relationship with his family had imploded. He'd lost everyone except me. Some nights, I'd find him crying in the bathroom. I keep thinking about all the times I should have stood up to her. All the times I let her walk all over you. This isn't your fault, isn't it? I gave her that key. I never questioned why she needed to come over when we weren't home. I just assumed she was being helpful. The criminal trial happened on a Tuesday in October. The courtroom was packed with Brennan's family, all there to support Daphne. They glared at us like we were the criminals. The prosecutor laid out the evidence methodically. The cameras, the receipts, the footage timestamps. Daphne's lawyer tried to paint her as a concerned mother who'd made a mistake. She never watched the footage. She just wanted peace of mind. Teresa Chen destroyed that argument in cross-examination. Ms. Daphne, you installed cameras in your son's bedroom, where he and his wife sleep, where they have private, intimate moments. You're telling this court you never watched that footage? Daphne's face went red. I may have checked once or twice, just to make sure they were okay. You accessed the footage 247 times over 3 months. That's twice a day, every single day. You watched your adult son and his wife in their bedroom 247 times. The courtroom went silent. Even Daphne's supporters looked uncomfortable. I was worried about him, she whispered. You were obsessed with controlling him, Teresa said. And when you couldn't control him anymore, When he chose his wife over your manipulation, you escalated. You violated his privacy in the most invasive way possible, all because he took a vacation without your permission. The jury deliberated for 2 hours, came back with guilty verdicts on all counts: illegal surveillance, invasion of privacy, stalking. The judge sentenced Daphne to 2 years probation, 200 hours community service, a $10,000 fine, and mandatory counseling. She was also ordered to have no contact with us for 5 years. As the sentence was read, Daphne started crying, big, theatrical sobs. "I'm his mother. I have a right to know what's happening in his life." The judge looked at her with open disgust. "You have no rights to surveil your adult son. What you did was not only illegal, it was a profound betrayal of trust. Be grateful you're not going to prison." As we left the courthouse, Daphne's entire family stood outside like a wall of judgment. No one said anything. They just stared at us with pure hatred. Brennan kept his head down, kept walking. Once we got to the car, he started shaking. Full body tremors he couldn't control. "I can't believe it's over," he whispered. "It's not over," I said gently. "It's going to take time to process all of this." He was right about that. The next few months were brutal. Brennan started therapy, twice-a-week sessions to unpack 35 years of manipulation and control. He'd come home emotionally exhausted, barely able to speak. His therapist explained that Daphne's behavior wasn't just about the cameras. It was the culmination of a lifetime of boundary violations. "She never saw you as a separate person," the therapist told him. "She saw you as an extension of herself, someone she had a right to control and monitor. When you started making your own choices, she escalated because her control was slipping." Brennan had never thought about it that way. Started remembering things. How his mother had read his diary in middle school, how she'd open his mail through college, how she'd show up at his first apartment unannounced and rearrange his furniture, how she'd tried to break up his previous relationships if she didn't approve. "She did the same thing to my dad," he realized one day. "She controls everything about his life. What he wears, who he talks to, where he goes. I just thought that was normal. It wasn't normal. None of it was normal." As he worked through these realizations, something shifted. The grief he'd been carrying started transforming into anger, healthy anger. "She stole years from us," he said one night. "Every vacation we went to that I hated. Every time I let her criticize you. Every time I chose keeping the peace over standing up for my wife. She stole all of that. We can't get those years back," I said, "but we can make sure it doesn't happen again." We made new rules for our life. No more people-pleasing at our expense. No more keeping the peace when it meant sacrificing our boundaries. No more family traditions that made us miserable. We started building our own traditions. The first year after the trial, we went to Italy for 2 weeks. No itinerary, no family, just us exploring. We ate too much pasta and got lost in small towns and slept in late. It was perfect. The second year, we went to Ireland, rented a cottage in the countryside, and spent a week reading by the fireplace. Brennan seemed lighter each year, less burdened, like he was finally becoming himself instead of his mother's creation. But the family never let it go. They created a narrative where Daphne was the victim, where I was the villain who'd stolen Brennan and destroyed their family, where Brennan was weak and controlled. They spread this story everywhere. Church groups, neighborhood associations, extended family, anywhere they had an audience. We heard it secondhand from people who didn't know the truth. "I heard your mother-in-law is heartbroken. It's so sad when children abandon their parents. Family is everything. How could you do that to her?" At first, Brennan tried to correct the record, would explain what actually happened. But people didn't want to hear it. They wanted the simple story, the devoted mother and the ungrateful son. So we stopped explaining. Let people believe whatever they wanted. The ones who mattered knew the truth. 3 years after the trial, we got a letter from Daphne's lawyer. She wanted to meet, to apologize and reconcile. "My client has completed significant therapy. She understands what she did was wrong and wants to make amends." Teresa Chen's advice was clear. Don't engage. It's a trap. Either she's truly changed, in which case she'll respect your boundary to stay away, or she hasn't changed, in which case meeting her puts you right back in her orbit. We didn't respond. 2 months later, Brennan's father called from a number we didn't recognize. Brennan answered without thinking. "Your mother is dying," his father said flatly. "Cancer. Stage 4. She has maybe 6 months. She wants to see you before she goes." Brennan hung up, stood there staring at his phone. "What if it's true? Then she'll die," I said. "And that's sad, but it doesn't obligate you to see her. She's my mother. She's also the person who violated your privacy in the most extreme way possible, who spent months spying on us, who sicked her entire family on us when we tried to set boundaries." He struggled with it for weeks. The guilt was enormous. His therapist helped him work through it. You're allowed to protect yourself even from dying parents, especially from dying parents who've harmed you. In the end, Brennan wrote a letter, told his mother he hoped she found peace, but he couldn't see her, that the damage she'd caused was too deep, that he forgave her for his own sake. But forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation. He mailed it and then fell apart, cried for 3 days straight, mourned the mother he'd wanted, not the one he had, mourned the family he'd lost, mourned the version of himself who'd kept hoping they'd change. 6 months later, his father called again. "She's gone. Funeral is Saturday." Brennan didn't go. Ren sent him vicious messages about missing his own mother's funeral. "She spent her last months crying over you. You killed her with your selfishness." The guilt nearly destroyed him, but his therapist kept him grounded. "You set a boundary. You maintained it even when it was difficult. That's not selfish. That's self-preservation." A year after Daphne's death, something unexpected happened. Brennan's younger cousin, Owen, reached out. He was 23, recently graduated from college. "I need to talk to you about Grandma Daphne, about what really happened." We met him at a coffee shop, both wary. Owen looked nervous. I've been in therapy for 6 months, working through some stuff, and I realized something. The way the family talks about what grandma did to you, it's not normal. It's really not normal. He explained how he'd been researching surveillance laws, trying to understand why we'd been so upset. She installed cameras in your bedroom. She watched you for months. That's not love. That's control. Thank you for understanding that, Brennan said quietly. Owen nodded. I'm trying to figure out if what happened to me was normal too. I'm starting to think it wasn't. Over the next hour, Owen shared his story. How Daphne had controlled every aspect of his childhood. How she'd opened his college acceptance letters before his parents could. How she'd tried to dictate his major, his career, even his girlfriend choices. How when he'd pushed back, she'd turned the family against him. I thought I was crazy, Owen said. Everyone kept telling me I was too sensitive, that grandma just cared a lot. But after she died, I found her journals. She'd written pages about all of us, about how to control us, how to keep us dependent. It was disturbing. He showed us photos of the journal entries, detailed plans for manipulating family members, lists of each person's weaknesses and how to exploit them, strategies for isolating anyone who resisted her control. My name appeared 47 times. Every entry about me included ways to break me or remove me from Brennan's life. The cameras had been just one strategy. There were others she'd planned but never executed. I made copies before Dad burned the journals, Owen said. I thought you should know, should see that you weren't crazy. She was actually doing all of this deliberately. Brennan read through the entries with tears streaming down his face. She planned everything, every guilt trip, every manipulation, every family gathering designed to make us miserable. I'm so sorry, Owen said. The whole family should have believed you. We should have protected you instead of attacking you. We stayed in touch with Owen after that. He started setting boundaries with his own parents, got himself into therapy, started building a life separate from the family's control. 2 years later, he got engaged to his boyfriend. The family threatened to disown him if he went through with it. He got married anyway, invited us to the wedding. It was the first time we'd seen any of Brennan's family in 5 years. The ceremony was small, beautiful, exactly what Owen wanted. During the reception, Ren showed up uninvited. Started making a scene about Owen destroying the family, about how first Brennan abandoned them, now Owen, about how their grandmother was probably rolling in her grave. Owen called security, had her removed, told her calmly, "You're not welcome here. You've never been welcome anywhere I am." After she left, Owen gave a toast. I want to thank everyone here for supporting me, especially my cousin Brennan and his wife. They showed me it's possible to break free from toxic family patterns. They showed me that leaving can be an act of self-love. The remaining family members who'd attended looked uncomfortable. Some left early, but the people who stayed, the ones who genuinely loved Owen, celebrated long into the night. Driving home that evening, Brennan said, I think I'm finally okay. Yeah. For years, I kept waiting to regret it, to wish I'd made different choices. But I don't. Breaking free from my mother was the best decision I ever made. He reached over and took my hand. Thank you for not letting me go back to Florida. 5 years after the trial, we had our first child, a daughter. We named her Elena, after my grandmother. When people asked if we'd told Brennan's family, we just smiled and said no. Some people pushed back. They're her grandparents. They have a right to know. Actually, they don't, Brennan would say calmly. We're not in contact with them, and we won't be. The questions eventually stopped. We built our own life, our own family, our own traditions. We vacation wherever we want. We host holidays with friends who've become chosen family. We make decisions together without outside interference. Sometimes Brennan gets sad, mourns what could have been if he'd had different parents, but he never regrets his choice to leave. Last month, we got a letter from his father, a long rambling thing about regret and wanting to meet his granddaughter, about how Daphne's death had made him realize what was important, about how he'd been wrong to support her behavior. Brennan read it once, then put it in the shredder. Do you want to respond? I asked. No. He had years to make things right. He chose her over me every single time. I'm done giving second chances to people who never changed. We were cleaning out the garage last weekend when Brennan found the old photo albums his mother had given him years ago. Hundreds of pictures of family vacations, holidays, celebrations. He flipped through them slowly. You know what's weird? I'm in every photo, but I don't remember being happy in any of them. He closed the album. Should we keep these for Elena? So she knows where she came from? She comes from us, I said. That's all she needs to know. We recycled the albums, started a new one filled with our adventures. Elena's first trip to the beach. Our week in Portugal, lazy Sunday mornings, real smiles, real joy. Last week, we got the postcards from Japan framed, the ones we'd sent to that beach house 5 years ago, hung them in our living room as a reminder. Sometimes the most rebellious thing you can do is choose yourself, choose your peace, choose your happiness over other people's expectations. Brennan stands in front of those frames sometimes, studies them like they're fine art. Do you ever wonder how different our lives would be if we'd just gone to Florida that year? Every day, I admit. And I'm grateful we didn't. Me too. Our daughter will grow up knowing her worth isn't determined by family expectations. She'll know that boundaries are healthy, that saying no is a complete sentence, that some relationships, even family ones, aren't worth maintaining. She'll know these things because we lived them, because we chose each other over tradition, over obligation, over guilt. People still ask sometimes why we're estranged from Brennan's family. We've stopped explaining. The people who understand don't need an explanation. The people who don't understand never will. We're just living our lives now, free from surveillance, free from manipulation, free from the weight of people who saw us as possessions rather than people. Sometimes I think about that beach house in Destin. Wonder if they still go every July. Wonder if they talk about us. Wonder if they've learned anything. Then I remember it doesn't matter. They're part of our past, not our present, not our future. We're building something better, something healthier, something true. And we're doing it on our own terms. No family vacations we don't choose. No obligations we don't want. No cameras hidden in our home. Just us, our daughter, and the life we've deliberately created. The life that started when we sent those postcards from Japan and refused to apologize for choosing ourselves. That's the thing they never understood. It was never about the vacation. It was about autonomy, about being seen as adults capable of making our own decisions, about respect. When they couldn't give us that, when they responded to boundaries with surveillance and harassment, they lost the privilege of being in our lives. And we're okay with that. Better than okay. We're thriving in a way we never could under Daphne's control. Yesterday, Brennan came home with tickets to Thailand. Thought we could go next summer, make some new memories. I smiled. Remembered the panic in his eyes that first trip to Japan, how far we'd come. Sounds perfect. And it will be. Because it's our choice, our adventure, our life. That's what freedom looks like. Not perfect, not without complications, but ours. Completely ours.